Right now, in freezers across America, millions of frozen pizzas are sitting on shelves waiting to be bought. They look convenient, they seem affordable, and honestly, after a long day, who has time to cook from scratch? But here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't know. Many of these frozen pizzas aren't just unhealthy, they're packed with ingredients you'd never put in your own kitchen. Some contain whitening agents used in sunscreen. Others use fake cheese that barely qualifies as dairy, and a few have even been recalled for containing plastic fragments. If you've been grabbing the same frozen pizza brand every week without checking what's actually inside, this video might change your shopping habits forever. Before we dive in, I'd love to hear from you. Which frozen pizza brand are you currently buying, and have you ever looked at the ingredients list on the back? Drop your answer in the comments below. And if you want to stay informed about what's really in your food, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our investigations into everyday products. Let's start with the frozen pizzas that might seem like a bargain, but come with a serious cost to your health. These are the ultra-processed party pizzas that pile on synthetic preservatives and questionable additives to keep them cheap and shelf-stable for months. First up is Totino's Party Pizza, a name that probably brings back memories of late-night college snacks or quick meals after school. Totino's has been a freezer staple for decades, mainly because of its incredibly low price. You can often find these small rectangular pizzas for just a couple of dollars, which makes them tempting when you're on a tight budget. But there's a reason they cost so little, and it has everything to do with what goes into them. Independent nutritional analyses show that Totino's pizzas are loaded with sodium, often exceeding 800 milligrams per serving, and that's for just half of one small pizza. The saturated fat content is equally concerning, sometimes reaching over half of your recommended daily limit in a single meal. But the real red flags appear when you read the ingredient list. These pizzas contain multiple synthetic preservatives like BHA, BHT, and TBHQ. These are antioxidants used to extend the shelf life of fats and oils, preventing them from going rancid during months of freezer storage. While regulatory agencies like the FDA still allow these additives in limited amounts, research and animal studies have raised concerns about their long-term effects. Some studies have linked high consumption of these preservatives to possible carcinogenic effects and negative impacts on cellular health. The bottom line is this: Totino's Party Pizza is the definition of ultra-processed food. You're looking at a long ingredient list full of chemicals you'd never use in a real kitchen, cheap processed meats, and a crust that's more about convenience than nutrition. Right alongside Totino's sits another budget option that takes shortcuts with its ingredients: Celeste frozen pizzas. Celeste has been around since the 1950s and markets itself as a classic American brand. But when you look closer at what's actually in these pizzas, things get concerning. One of the biggest issues is the cheese. Many Celeste varieties don't use real mozzarella. Instead, they rely on an imitation mozzarella blend that includes ingredients like titanium dioxide. You might recognize that name from sunscreen bottles because titanium dioxide is commonly used in cosmetics and sunscreen to provide a white color and block ultraviolet light. In food, it's used to make cheese look extra white, smooth, and uniform. European regulators have actually banned titanium dioxide in food products due to safety concerns, particularly around nanoparticles that could accumulate in the body. While the FDA still allows it in limited amounts in the United States, the fact that it's even necessary raises a fundamental question. If your cheese needs a whitening agent borrowed from sunscreen to look appetizing, is it really cheese at all? This is a science project, not a pizza. The rest of Celeste's ingredient profile follows the same pattern: synthetic stabilizers, flavor enhancers, and refined ingredients designed to maximize shelf life and minimize cost. The result is a product that looks like pizza but delivers very little real nutrition. Now, let's shift gears to a different category of frozen pizza, one that's even more deceptive because it hides behind premium branding and artisanal marketing: These are the frozen pizzas that cost a bit more and come in beautiful packaging with words like fresh, elevated, and gourmet splashed across the box. But underneath that slick presentation, you'll often find dense fat blends and questionable nutritional profiles. Take Urban Pie, for example. This brand markets itself as an elevated frozen pizza experience, something closer to what you'd get at a trendy pizzeria. The packaging features modern design, the descriptions talk about quality ingredients, and the price point is higher than your average frozen pizza. But when you actually look at how these pizzas are made, you start to see the problems. Urban Pie relies heavily on layered fat blends from oils and multiple types of cheese to build its rich flavor. While that might taste good initially, it creates a product that's extremely dense in fats. When these pizzas are frozen, the fats form complex matrices that are much harder for your digestive system to break down and emulsify compared to a fresh pizza made with simpler ingredients. You're essentially eating a fat brick covered in cheese. The beautiful, Instagram-worthy box can't change the fact that what's inside is harder on your body than a homemade pizza would ever be. The marketing tells you this is premium, but your digestive system knows better. Another brand that falls into this trap is Geno's East Frozen Deep Dish Pizza. If you're from Chicago or you've ever visited, you probably know Geno's East as a legendary deep dish restaurant. The frozen version tries to capture that nostalgia, and admittedly, it does taste closer to authentic Chicago deep dish than most frozen options. But here's the problem. The frozen industrial process used to make these pizzas is completely different from what happens in the restaurant kitchen. Frozen Geno's East pizzas are extremely dense in refined white flour, heavy cheese layers, and processed meats like sausage and pepperoni. Because deep dish style naturally packs more ingredients into each slice, you end up with a calorie and sodium bomb that far exceeds what you'd get from a thinner crust pizza. A single serving can easily contain over 400 calories, and if you eat half the pizza like most people do, you've just consumed a significant portion of your daily limits for fat, sodium, and refined carbohydrates. Yes, it might taste like a trip to Chicago, but nutritionally, it's more like a one-way trip to your cardiologist. The next category of frozen pizzas to avoid is perhaps the most frustrating because these brands actively mislead consumers with health-focused or premium branding. They use green packaging, words like natural and fresh, and clever marketing to make you think you're choosing a healthier option. But when you flip the box over and read the nutrition facts, the truth becomes clear. Freschetta Naturally Rising Crust is a perfect example. The brand name itself sounds fresh and Italian, and the packaging emphasizes naturally rising crust as if that's some kind of health benefit. But look at the numbers for their supreme variety, which includes both pepperoni and sausage. One serving, which is roughly 1/5 of the pizza, contains about 350 calories, over 800 milligrams of sodium, and 15 grams of fat. If you eat half the pizza in one sitting, which is easy to do, you've just taken in over 1,600 milligrams of sodium. That's more than 2/3 of the recommended daily limit in a single meal. The crust may rise naturally, but that doesn't make the pizza any less of a salt and fat bomb. The green box screams premium quality, but the numbers on the back tell a completely different story. This is classic misleading branding, where the front of the package is designed to distract you from what's actually inside. Even brands with wholesome, charity-focused images aren't immune to this problem. Newman's Own, famous for donating all profits to charity, makes frozen pizzas that many people assume are healthier because the brand's clean reputation. And to be fair, Newman's Own does use some better ingredients than the cheapest frozen pizzas. But once any frozen pizza goes through the freezing and stabilization process required for mass distribution, it behaves like most other refined flour, fast-carb pizzas. The crust is made from white flour that spikes your blood sugar quickly. The cheese and toppings are stabilized with preservatives, and the overall nutritional value is reduced compared to fresh ingredients. The brand's story is undeniably positive, charitable, and well-intentioned, but from a nutritional standpoint, this frozen pizza will still hit your body with refined carbohydrates and processed fats just like any other frozen option. The charitable giving doesn't change the metabolic impact of the food itself. Now let's talk about the absolute bottom tier of frozen pizza, the budget store brands that sacrifice quality for price. These pizzas are often the cheapest options in the freezer aisle, and while saving money is understandable, the trade-off in taste and texture is often not worth it.
Mama Kotzi's is Aldi's house brand for frozen pizza, and it includes varieties like stuffed crust and multi-meat pizzas that seem like great deals on paper. Some of their stuffed crust varieties even advertise 2.5 feet of cheese in the crust, which sounds impressive. But read the consumer reviews and you'll find a consistent pattern of complaints. People describe the crust as tough, cardboard-like, and disappointingly bland. Even when you follow the baking instructions perfectly, the texture doesn't improve much. The dough quality is simply poor, and no amount of cheese stuffed into the edges can fix that. Multiple shoppers have explicitly warned others to avoid Mama Kotzi's crust varieties because the experience is so underwhelming. Yes, you save a few dollars, but you end up regretting the purchase because the pizza just isn't enjoyable to eat. When food is both unhealthy and unpleasant, there's really no reason to buy it. Even worse than poor quality is poor safety. Palermo's frozen pizza, sometimes labeled as Palermo in certain regions, had a significant recall in late 2024. Over 1,700 frozen pizzas from their Connie's thin crust cheese line were recalled because of possible plastic fragments found in the product. When a brand has to pull pizzas from shelves because they might contain pieces of plastic, that's a massive red flag about quality control and manufacturing standards. Even setting aside the recall, Palermo's positions itself as family-friendly and authentic
while still being an industrial frozen product with all the typical processed inputs. If you're going to eat frozen pizza, you should at least choose a brand that takes safety and quality seriously. Palermo's track record suggests you're better off looking elsewhere. So we've covered 8 frozen pizza brands you should avoid, from ultra-processed party pizzas to misleading premium brands and low-quality budget options. But frozen pizza doesn't have to be terrible. There are actually a few brands that do things better, using real ingredients, shorter ingredient lists, and better production methods. Let's talk about the 3 frozen pizzas that are actually worth your money. First on the list of worthwhile frozen pizzas is Rao's. If you've ever bought Rao's pasta sauce, you know the brand has a reputation for quality, and their frozen pizzas live up to that standard. Rao's frozen pizzas, especially varieties like the 5 cheese, consistently win taste tests and consumer rankings for both flavor and texture. The crust is described as light, crispy, and surprisingly close to what you'd get from a fresh-baked pizza at a good pizzeria. That's a huge difference from the dense, cardboard-like crusts you get from budget brands. But what really sets Rao's apart is the ingredient list. Instead of imitation cheese blends and synthetic stabilizers, Rao's uses a blend of real cheeses, including whole milk mozzarella, provolone, fontina, Romano, and Parmesan. The sauce is made from quality tomatoes, and the dough doesn't rely on a long list of chemical additives to stay fresh. Yes, Rao's costs a few dollars more than Totino's or Celeste, but you can actually taste where that money goes. You're paying for real cheese, better dough, and fewer weird additives. If you're going to eat frozen pizza, this is one of the few brands where the quality justifies the price. The second brand worth considering is California Pizza Kitchen, specifically their thin crust varieties. CPK is known for its restaurant locations, and the frozen versions do a surprisingly good job of capturing that restaurant-style experience. The crispy thin crust Sicilian recipe is particularly well regarded for its flavor balance. It includes 3 types of meat, along with mozzarella and fontina cheeses, and importantly, it contains no artificial flavors and uses a preservative-free crust. The ingredient list is much cleaner than what you'll find in most frozen pizzas, and the company emphasizes using 100% real cheese. Because the crust is thin, the calorie count per slice stays more reasonable compared to thick or stuffed crust options. You're not drowning in refined dough and heavy fats. If you want a frozen pizza that feels closer to what you'd order at a casual dining restaurant, CPK's thin crust line delivers surprisingly well with real ingredients and a cleaner label than most competitors. Finally, let's talk about DiGiorno. Now, DiGiorno isn't a health food by any stretch. These pizzas still contain refined flour, plenty of cheese, and more sodium than you'd want to eat every day. But if we're being realistic, most people aren't eating frozen pizza for its health benefits. They're eating it for convenience and taste. And in that context, DiGiorno's better varieties, like the original rising crust 4 cheese and the crispy pan pepperoni, rank near the top in taste tests. The crust manages to be both fluffy and crispy, which is hard to achieve in a frozen product, and the cheese coverage is generous without being overwhelming. More importantly, the ingredient quality is noticeably better than the cheapest ultra-processed options. You're not dealing with imitation cheese or a laundry list of synthetic preservatives. DiGiorno is still a treat, something you'd eat once in a while, not a daily meal. But when you do eat frozen pizza, DiGiorno delivers real taste instead of the chemical-laden cardboard experience you get from budget brands. It's not perfect, but it's a reasonable choice if you're going to indulge. So let's wrap this up. We've exposed 8 frozen pizza brands you should avoid, from Totino's synthetic preservatives to Celeste's sunscreen white cheese, from Urban Pie's dense fat bricks to Freschetta's misleading health branding, and from Mama Kotzi's cardboard crust to Palermo's recalled pizzas with plastic fragments. These brands prioritize cost-cutting and shelf life over real nutrition and food safety. But we've also shown you that better options exist. Rayo's, California Pizza Kitchen, and DiGiorno prove that frozen pizza doesn't have to be a chemical experiment. These brands use real cheese, cleaner ingredients, and better production methods, which means you can still enjoy the convenience of frozen pizza without completely sacrificing quality. The next time you're standing in the freezer aisle, take an extra 30 seconds to flip the box over and read the ingredient list. Look for real cheese, avoid synthetic preservatives like BHA and TBHQ, and be skeptical of brands that use whitening agents or imitation dairy. Your body will thank you for choosing quality over price, even if it costs a couple of dollars more. If this video helped you see frozen pizza in a new light, please give it a thumbs up, share it with friends who need to know this information, and subscribe to our channel so you stay informed about what's really in your food. Drop a comment below and let me know which frozen pizza you'll never buy again after watching this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we uncover more hidden truths behind everyday foods.